Alright, hello everybody. I started the stream a little early. I pressed the actual start streaming button a little bit early, so I'm gonna start a little bit early as well. Um, what are you doing all the way back there? It was nothing to do with this. He wants nothing to do with us today. Alright. And for the second time in a row, my camera decided to not work and I had to fiddle with it to get it to work. So, that's always amazing. Love that that's becoming a regular thing now. Very happy. Very happy about that. I love when software doesn't work because it gives me an opportunity to fix it. And I love to have an opportunity to fix software because I have nothing better to do with my time. Yeah. Or hardware doesn't work, I guess. I don't know. Alright. Um, okay, this here is supposed to be Lisp if you say it with a Lisp. But I kind of struggle to understand what it meant, so I'm just going to write it as Lisp. We are about 12 subscribers away from 15K, which means probably tomorrow I'm going to be working with Lisp. Which means I need to do a little bit of research between today and tomorrow, most likely. It would be really funny if tomorrow I got to, or today I got to 14,999. And then I guess I would still do it. I don't. If just one person subscribes during that stream, then it's 15K, so we're good. But it would be really fun if that happened. So yeah, most likely tomorrow I'm going to be checking out Lisp. Kind of excited about that. What I've heard about it, I kind of like. And I've never done it before, so that should be interesting. I love C, but part of me is wanting to make my own public layer on top of libc. You should. 100% you should do that. I feel like working with pure libc is not worth it, because if you want to work with libc, obviously you do, but you just write helpers around it, like that thing in Discord. The way you get the size of a file in C is ridiculous. In libc is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous fucking code. Alright, so you open the file. Makes sense. What's the size of the file? You don't really know. But you opened it. Well, you just fseek to the end of the file. So your cursor moves to the end of the file. At which point you call ftell on the file descriptor, which will tell you the size of the file because you're now at the end of the file. But of course you're at the end of the file, so you want to rewind back to the beginning of the file if that's what you want. You may not always want that. Yeah. Isn't that just logical? Isn't that just such a beautiful way of doing things? Who came up with this? Like, almost every time I open a file, I need to know its size. Why is it this complex to do that? For reference, this is how you do it in my system. This is how you do it in my system. You open the file, you pass it a file descriptor, and that file descriptor is going to have a size. Also, why is my cursor this the entire time? It's not changing, no matter what I do. Again, I love when software doesn't work. It gives me an opportunity to debug it, which is exactly what you want to be doing all the time with your computer. Linux really had the right idea with that one. Yeah, if what you write only uses libc, then it's portable to anything that uses libc. But if you wrap around libc and you also include your wrapper, then you don't really have a problem. ftel to get the current position, fseek to the end, ftel to get the size, fseek to the previous position. So rewind kind of does that, but yeah. It's crazy. Ridiculous. Technically, my library does work as a wrapper around libc, but it does replace some libc functions. Yeah. I think, yeah, if you're going to be writing C, using a wrapper around libc makes perfect sense. You don't want to use raw libc. There's no real reason to do it, and it wasn't written with a whole lot of logic in mind. I'm not gonna get into the ints, but I am gonna show this. If you search for fucking stupid in my system, you will get this. Anyway. Probably made sense in the 70s. Did that make sense in the 70s? To get the size of a file, you go to the end of the file and then you go to the beginning of the... That's actually slower, isn't it? That feels like it's slower. It's a slower, less efficient way of getting a size of a file. That cannot possibly have made sense in the 70s. I feel like it made less sense back then. This feels like it was written by a JavaScript developer in terms of how wasteful it is. It feels like a hack. It's ridiculous that in order to get the size of a file, what you have to do something that feels like a hack. That is crazy. Alright. Here's the deal, though. Last week, yesterday, not last week, I added, wait, actually, before I begin deciding what I'm gonna do today, because I have no idea, kind of wanted to show a little what it looked like when I was debugging something earlier today. Alright, so I was getting back to my compiler, and a while ago I added this kind of optimization to the compiler, where essentially it's capable of parsing based on this language definition, which you can change, and then that changes the language that it parses. Of course, in the syntax of a language, there's going to be stuff that is... Oh, it did update. Okay, I thought I hadn't pulled my changes, but it looks like I did. There's going to be some symbols that are going to be optional. For example, in a function call, normally you call the function by its name, left parenthesis, arguments, right parenthesis. But the arguments are optional. If the function doesn't take any arguments, you don't pass any. So it might just be parentheses with no arguments in between. So that's kind of an optional. Same as you can, if it passes you a pointer and you dereference that pointer, you can do that. I also used to have a addressing, so the opposite of dereferencing. That didn't really make sense in that place. I guess I just copied and pasted it and didn't think about it too much. So I removed it. But yeah, the parser has there's optionals in the language. And I considered moving the optionals, like handling these optionals from the parser generator to the parser itself. What a parser generator essentially looks at this rule and just generates 4 different possibilities. One with neither of the optionals, one with the other, one with both. Right, so 4 different rules. And I tried moving the optionals directly into the parser, where, okay, I expect to find this character. If I don't find it, then that's just an optional. Skip it, go to the next one. That was kind of introducing a lot of ambiguity, a lot of issues. And it kind of led to the point that there was like an infinite loop in parsing that I couldn't debug. And I was like, you know what, I kind of don't understand my code anymore. So I reverted that change. And then I noticed something with lambdas in this language, right? So here we have a lambda inside of this traverse directory function. It's kind of ugly. It's essentially just a function with no name, a function declaration with no name. I'm probably going to change it eventually, make it a little bit nicer to look at. But that's what it is right now. And yeah, we have a lambda here. We could have another lambda inside of it if we also like call the same function. We could have another lambda inside of it. And the way that this translates to C code, which is what the compiler outputs, is it puts these lambdas inside of a function called tempfunc0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But I already fixed the bug that was happening, so I kind of have to replicate it manually. Essentially, what was happening is this, right? We have two different lambdas that look the same, except one of them is going to call this function. The function call looks like this. And no, this is backwards. All right, so this is how it was happening. So this is the outermost lambda, and this is the innermost lambda. So that's the outermost out here, and the innermost in here. And this one references this one down here, which of course the C compiler cannot pick up. So nested lambdas didn't work because, yeah, it's referencing a function that gets declared after it. So you would have to either forward declare it here, or ideally just move it up here, which is what I ended up doing, of course. But I was kind of looking into how to debug this, right? And the way that I did it is I just looked up this pattern. This pattern goes to here. This is where it gets created. This is where the function for the lambda gets created in make temp name. This gets called from here, which is apparently inactive, because Clang is stupid. Anyway, eventually it led me back to this code. And I was like, okay, the problem is happening here. And the entire time in my head, I was like, okay, so this is the innermost lambda, this is the outermost lambda, this is what's happening. Okay, so this one gets created here. The whole logic was happening in my brain. But to an outside observer, this is what the entire debugging process would have looked like. Which, by the way, that is actually the fix. I found that really funny when I considered it for a second. Just the fact that all of this was happening and I had no fucking clue. Like, from an external point of view, it just looks like I'm just staring at the code real hard until the solution presents itself. And then that false becomes a true and everything's fixed. But surprisingly... Okay, I didn't pull my changes. Oh, okay. Right, I said I reverted some changes that I didn't want anymore. So, I haven't pulled my changes, which means I haven't reverted my changes, which means there's a little bit of diverging history happening here. Because essentially what I did is the branch that I'm currently on is main, and the history looks like this. I essentially reset main back to this. Then all of this I moved into its own branch, and then I started building on top of this one in main. So now I need to pull those changes and hope. Yeah, it thinks that it needs to push 5 changes because they're not on main, but really. I'm hoping this works. I don't think I've ever done this. I didn't mean that. You can force pull. Okay. There's a conflict in the pull. How is that possible? Alright, there's the change. There's the fix. This is the test code that I wrote. Frankly, All of this is auto-generated, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, is that it? That's it. Alright. Alright, so that is correct now. The outermost lambda is temp function 1. That one calls temp func 0, which gets declared before it. Alright, so yes, everything seems to be working correctly. Conflict is fixed. This file is not really doing much. No, that's not good. That's not good. It seems to have merged my changes. I get pull forced because I didn't want to keep the changes that were in my local because they were now deprecated. I removed them. I reset the branch. Why are they still there? Git, why are you built in a way that is so unintuitive? Git is actually so difficult to work with. Even if you know what you're doing, there's all these little gotchas and all these little annoying things that makes it such a pain in the fucking ass to work with. I swear to God, you know what? I'm not gonna be so disruptive. Literally easier to just pull the project back from scratch than to do this shit. Alright, however, my build file is apparently old. I had fixed it in the old branch, now it's no longer fixed. So that's kind of an issue. Compiler theory? Honestly, you know, I'm very DIY. Figure it out like that. So I'm not really good at recommending resources. TBH. Alright. Right, what even is the issue? No, hold on. Set target now takes 2 arguments, so I kind of need to remember what the hell the second argument is to be completely H with you. Override global. Right, so yes, you want to Wait, hold on. If Git was a decent system to work with, all the changes that I need to make now, I've already made on a different branch. I would have no issue cherry picking that and taking it into this branch. However, Git is a pain in the ass to work with. That is not the reality that we live in which Git is pleasant and nice to work with. We live in a reality in which Git is a pain in the ass. So it's probably easier for me to do it manually than to just copy in the code manually by reading it. There it is, literally. Yeah, so much easier to do that than to deal with Git's bullshit. Alright, so this is a true. This is a false. And for the int main, you now want to take an int argc and a string array argv. I had to hack together a string array type because the char star array syntax my compiler doesn't support, so oh well. And then parse arguments with the argc and the argv, and rebuild self true. Whoop. True. Literally easier than cherry picking. And there we have it. System's fixed. Again, I would have no problem. Like, there's literally a feature. Is it actually cherry picking? I don't remember. Yep. So, cherry picking is specifically for this, where I have two branches, right? I have one branch and the other one here. And there's a commit on this branch that I want to do here. Well, I want to add it here. So I cherry pick this commit onto this branch. The rest of the commits on the branch do not go there. So it's kind of limited in the way that it works, but it kind of does that. And again, there is a commit where I literally made these fixes. I just added false here, true here, and I added this one function call and these arguments. That's literally it. Oh, and a true here. Right, completely separate from the rest of the project because this is the build systems configuration. So cherry pick is perfect to move this from here to here. But Git is such a pain in the ass. Literally, just tried to undo, to just be like, okay, pull the changes from the remote and go back to where the remote has now reset the history because something in the history was wrong. We reset it. So if I git pull force, that should probably, same as git push force does, git pull force should undo what I have in my local in favor of what's in the remote. But it doesn't work that way. So what it did instead is it merged the two. Great fucking job with that. And while I'm at it, the other day I was doing git bisect. Another completely useless feature. So git bisect is supposed to help you find where a bug was introduced, right? So I'm working on this commit. This is the head of my branch. And then I have a bunch of other commits which are apparently not very much on the branch, but doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm working here. And I'm like, why are you filling in? No, don't do that. I'm working here, and I'm like, oh, there's a bug. Wait, this bug wasn't happening last week? Alright, so git bisect can help me go through the history and indicate which part, where the commit was brought in, right? So I just tell it like, okay, this one is a bad commit. This one is bad. The bug happens here. I already know that. Alright, now take me back to this commit. Now we're working on this commit. Let me test my code. Oh, the bug doesn't happen here, so this is a good one. Alright, and then it automatically starts jumping between commits. Like maybe next up it's going to take me to this commit. I'm going to test. Turns out the bug also exists here. So this one is a bad commit. We can assume that this one is bad too, without even checking it. We can assume, but we don't really know. So it's going to be like, okay, let me take you to this one. Oh, this one is good. So clearly, this commit here is the one that introduced the bug. And I can just look at the changes in this commit and be like, there's the bug. This is a great feature, so long as you don't use submodules. If you use submodules, it will not automatically reset the submodule back to how it was at the time of the commit. When you use submodules, you're technically using another Git repository. With another project in it. And as you're jumping around between these commits, the submodule always stays on the same commit. Do we maybe see the problem with that? Can we maybe think about this a little bit more? Should it maybe do this automatically? It should also reset the submodule back to how it was? If the entire point of bisect is to go back in history and show me how the code was back at a certain time so I can see if a bug was happening back then, you need to reproduce the conditions as it was back then as closely as possible. Isn't that just obvious? And as closely as possible means you also need to reset the submodule back to how it was. Which, by the way, submodules? Don't have a commit hash actually, but they do internally. I'm not sure where exactly, but somewhere here it keeps track of which commit the submodule points to. Not here apparently, somewhere else. So you should be able to do this. You should be able to, okay, back then the commit was this one, so let's also reset the submodule back to this commit. But no, apparently that was not something they considered. So, yeah, we don't get that. Which means git bisect is completely useless in my OS project because I have a submodule. Even though if it worked, it would be a very useful feature to know exactly when a bug was introduced. Between that and GDC, Jesus, the Game Developers Conference, GDB introducing more bugs than it fixes, debugging is a pain in the ass. I hate debugging. I hate it so much. Because there's no good tools to debug. None whatsoever. I know there's a couple of like really good debuggers that don't work on Linux, so that's great. On top of that, I would need one that works with a cross-compilation toolchain, so that makes it more difficult. And yeah, Git has this feature to help you debug that is not useful in any real case scenario, let's say. So not much I can do for debugging besides manually checking where the code is. Where the bug is, I mean. Anyway, I love programming just as much as I love debugging shit. Because we've really been doing this for like decades, and we've clearly made some great decisions in the process, and we've actually like built enough tools to be able to do this job effectively and pleasantly. We've done a great job. I'm totally not being sarcastic right now. Anyway, I apparently need to commit this. Okay. Why are these changes not already made? Since all I did was change this file, which also changes this file, where are you guys coming from? I'm a little concerned by that. But anyway. Alright. Now, to actually talk about the operating system. The past 2 days, Friday and Saturday, I worked on adding headless mode to the system, which mostly implied rewriting a state machine that the system uses to, start up applications and whatnot, and giving it UART input. which means we can now choose to what here boot the system in headless mode, not use login, and use Windows means nothing, but whatever. Should be able to. It still has graphics, but I could disable that part now, technically, but it's not really ready to do that. But okay, the terminal is now running in headless mode, which means I can type in a command here, even though it doesn't output it back to you. Maybe I should make it do that. I'm gonna say echo hello, and it's gonna echo hello. And it also did that here, although it did it twice, which is a little weird. So this is still a little bit buggy. But it's kind of not what I want to work on today. Alright, so yeah, I did that. Works well. Needs a little bit of bug fixing, but it works. So I'm good with it. Kind of wanted to work on this, because the system does need a little bit of documentation, a little bit of what the hell is even going on here. And so I want to add a system to do that. So I wanted to work on a documentation system for it. I have to say, I don't know how the man command works, what features it has, and how helpful it truly is. But I definitely wanted to make my documentation system a little bit dynamic. Before I do that, though, I want to man the man. Alright, man is the system's manual pager. It's funny that in order to read the manual for the manual, you need to know how to use the manual. So if you want to learn how to use the manual, you can't, because the manual requires knowledge on how to use it. Really, you just need to know the word man, and you need to know the syntax, which is man and then the command that you want. So you can do man like I just did. But yeah, you got to know at the very least that about the manual in order to learn about the manual. So you can't learn the very basics of how to use the manual from the manual itself. Is this knowledge that is just passed down from generation to generation, or how do we approach this? How do we fix this? Also, hello, QJR and Julius. If it is a system that we pass down from generation to generation, can we ever lose it? Is that a thing? Are we at risk of losing that documentation? Can that happen to us? How do we prevent it from happening? How do we make sure that we can always access the manual? How do we bootstrap the manual? You gotta do that. All right. Obviously I'm exaggerating it, but that is how programming languages work. If all compilers for a programming language that is self-hosted suddenly disappear, you can no longer compile that language because its compiler is written in itself. And it cannot compile itself. Obviously the first version maybe wasn't, probably wasn't built in itself, but, that is kind of a thing that you need to consider. Anyway. Alright, so the man manual has information on executable programs or shell commands, system calls, library calls, special files, file formats, and conventions. I was wondering about that, because I kind of want my manual to definitely give you some file format and convention information. I didn't know that it did that. Games? If you say so, has information on games. Always keep around a non-self-hosted copy of the compiler. Yeah, kind of. I have this issue with my build system, because the build system requires itself to build. So, no, the compiler requires the build system requires the compiler. So, it's not exactly self-hosted, but it's kind of a double dependency there. Although you can also build the build system with just GCC. because it compiles to C. That's the great thing about it. If all the compilers for my language suddenly disappear, it compiles to C. So as long as you have one compiled version of it, you can just work off that. But you don't have the language itself anymore. You have C now. Although the compiler is also written in C, and I'm okay with that, so I don't really want to make it self-hosted. Although it is a little bit self-hosted, so what the fuck am I talking about? It has a little bit of its own code in it. Mostly when it comes to like creating enums and whatnot. Alright, we got miscellaneous, including man, graph, and man pages. System administration commands usually only for root, and kernel routines non-standard. Alright, so now I'm curious. Well, I don't really use the manual all that much. Can I just move this to another window? That's how you do it. Okay. Can I just do this? No. Interesting. Okay. If you do something that the manual doesn't expect you to do, it automatically suggests that you do man. So, really reducing the amount of self-hosting happening. The amount of like manual knowledge that you need in order to access the manual. Some weird ass noises going on outside. Can I? No, I don't think I can possibly list all the entries to a manual, right? That would be a little bit too much. I would want mine to do that to a certain extent. But anyway, alright, let's try man ls, because that's what I want, right? Alright, so man ls is for the command version of ls. To be fair, there's no other version of ls. I had some examples. So one is a library like fopen, if I'm not mistaken. Automatically takes you to the 3 version of that, which is the library function version of that. The the syscall version is 2. Right, so if I do man2 fopen, that is not alright, hold on. What are some actual syscalls in Linux? Like if I'm not mistaken, exec, no. Damn, I never used this damn system. Kinda hate it. Let me see. Linux syscalls. Okay, so it's just read. Stat and fstat. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted. Okay. Alright, so this is the system call version of stat. And then if I do... There's no fstat. Isn't there a single library function that is also the same name as a syscall? I think there is. But not open, I think, for example. No. Pipe, maybe? No. Alright, so I guess there isn't. Must have made that up. I feel like there was, but I'm not seeing it, so probably not. Anyway. Alright, I was just about to ask, how are manual pages stored? That would be in user share, which is not user, it's Unix system resources. share man. And here we have all of these for different languages too. And so we got men 1, men 2, men 3, men 4, men 5, men 6. We got the entire boy band going. Men 7, men 8. Alright, forgot about you guys. Sorry about that. Where's EN? There's no EN for English, so I'm assuming it's just the default. Classic. There's also UK, but is that Ukrainian or is that United Kingdom? I'm assuming that's like Ukrainian, probably. Anyway. Yeah, so they're stored as a gzip file. Is it gzip? Yeah, gzip files. Which is definitely unexpected. Hello, Julianum. UK mentioned, yes, but probably not the UK. I think Ukraine mentioned. Ukraine would be UA? Can we open these, like, manually? Like, I can extract them. Take a little longer, please. Be a little slower. My god. My god. Wait, which one is this? Which one is this? Oh, that's man too. Okay, I didn't go to the either Ukraine or UK version of it. Let me try that. Well, this one simply does not seem to have as many options as the other one. So I'm going to go with Ukraine. They probably didn't bother translating it a whole lot. No, not there. Okay. Good thing it failed. Not that it matters. I would just... Alright. Yeah, this is probably Ukrainian. I don't think they speak this... Well, they probably speak this language in the UK. But I don't think it's a native official language of the UK. Not last I checked. Spoke English over there. They originated the language and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna go with this is probably not very British. Scottish, maybe? Linux ignores files extension. Yeah, that's... You should do that. You should 100% ignore file extensions and just... You can look at file extensions and... oops. Should probably move this very old book from this random ass desk. I'm just gonna move it a little bit over there. I forgot what I was saying. Whatever. Just finish the sentence for me. Ask an LLM or something. I don't know. Alright. Can't even begin to read this. So, just gonna ignore it. But, thank you. Alright, so this kind of gives me an answer for the question that I had. Is there anything clever happening in these files? This is back to the UK version. The English version is not necessarily UK version. Alright, so which one is this? Out B? What function is out B? Alright, so man to out B. Alright. This is what we are looking at. So this is the top of it. Okay. So we have the copyright here. When it was first written, so 1995, it has 2003 here, so I'm assuming that's when it was last updated. For Linux man pages 6.7. Alright then. License. Okay, then it has sh name. Then it has all of these. Out W, out L, out SB, so on and so forth. For all of them. Then dashboard IO. Then it goes into SH. So I'm assuming the SH here stands for section header. Yeah, section header probably. Library. Standard C library. Then RI. libc lc. So are they links? What are they supposed to be? Alright, so let me look up the man page format. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. What was I expecting? What was I expecting? It was a whole thing. It's not simple. It's never fucking simple with the Unixes. Not getting a cold. I'm somehow getting worse from allergies that were really bad on Monday. Today is Sunday. It's been a week. Monday I was dying. Tuesday I was better. Wednesday I was a little bit better. Then yesterday and today I just started getting worse. But yeah, I'm used to it at this point. I just know it's allergies. Yeah, I don't understand what RE stands for or what exactly it's supposed to do. Like, I understand that it writes this and it gives them these little things, but what does that mean? That's not a link? That's not something I can follow or do anything with? So that feels kind of weird. Anyway, we got synopsis. NF B include sysio.h. B for bold, probably. There's definitely some like auto formatting for the code happening here. Because I can see that there's quotation marks here and then port. And if you look at port, it is underlined. I genuinely don't understand the meaning of the underlines. Why well, I understand why specifically that, because it's an argument. You underline it. But for example, why don't you put quotation marks around this? Then, like you did around this, why not around this? Here we have another one. This is a string, and we got the name of the variable. This is a string. We got the name of the variable. Count. Okay, so let me look at that one. Looks like that. Okay. String and count, and again, this doesn't have. I am using C. Yes. Some C++ that, for example, yesterday really came to bite me in the ass because C++ is stupid. So I regret using it every day more and more. But there is some C++. All right. Yeah, so I was wondering, like, what format do they use for manual pages? Because I was wondering, are you doing anything somewhat clever with manual pages? Because I wanted to do something that feels somewhat clever. It might just be really, really stupid. I don't know. We're here to find that out. Alright, here's my plan for man pages. Manuals. For manual pages. See, the thing is, I no longer have the constraint that Mr. Unix had with limiting command names as much as possible. Although, you know, it's not just about like how much space was used up by like file names and all that. It was also about like you're gonna be typing these commands a lot. You don't want to type out list directory, which doesn't exist, but like you don't want to be doing that. So you just type ls. You don't want to type change directory. You type cd. Could we have made it a little bit better? For example, if this might be controversial, I'm honestly not sure. Dear. Dear. Oh dear. I did not know that dear works on Unix likes, but also isn't the same as it is on Windows. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, dear on Windows is the same as cd. cd's nuts. It changes the directory, right? No! No, I'm being stupid. Okay. Never mind. Never mind. Doesn't do that. Alright, so dir actually displays a list of the directory's files. By the way, notice how the AI mode in Google is like showing up less and less? Am I the only one noticing this? Yeah, I even saw a, what is it called? One of those like snippets from Wikipedia. Like one of those manual ones from way back in the day. 3 years ago. The other day. The world is healing, kind of. The bubble is popping. But am I wrong to notice that it's happening less and less? Maybe it's something to do with losing money on making slop that everyone ignores? Nah, it's the children who are wrong. Actually, that thing, I wish I remember what the search I did was. Oh yeah, it was functional programming languages. Featured snippets. I feel like I'm seeing a friend that I haven't seen in years. Might not be popping. I don't know, I feel like it is, because, you know, economically, yeah. The thing is that if this becomes unprofitable, it was never profitable, but if it becomes not profitable and the investors realize it, it's over. Like, nobody's gonna want to fund OpenAI anymore, no one's gonna want to fund Claude anymore. Sure, there's still gonna be open source models, which are honestly the best case scenario. So even if you like AI, I feel like you should probably want the bubble to pop. But, well, to be fair, you will lose. Access to models that can look like they know what they're doing.
Hey investors.
And you'll only have
just a little bit more money and it'll be profitable.
Yep, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait. Five more minutes. 5 more trillions. 5 more trillions. 5 more trillions. That's it. That's all we need. 5 more trillions. 6? That's all we need. But yeah, I'm starting to notice it on Google. I genuinely like, because I took a break from streaming and I wasn't um I've genuinely cleansed my entire Twitter timeline off of any AI shit. I don't know how it happened. I think even I didn't do that. I don't think I did that. I think it's just started to show me less and less AI slop that was being pushed artificially. Now it's no longer being pushed because I was never interested in it. But it's starting to push it less and less. So it really feels like yeah, I left for a bit. All of a sudden my entire timeline became about like pop culture, a little bit of politics, just the way I like it. A little bit of shit posting, of course, just a perfect little sugar spice and everything nice. Except for the politics, that part kind of sucks, but hey, whatever. I still like to be informed. Um, and no longer AI bros. And then I came back and I started streaming and I noticed this shit for the first time in years. And now I'm noticing less and less AI overview. When literally nobody asked, it would always bring up some answers. Now I'm not seeing them anymore. Weird shit is happening. Also, Uber has limited like the amount of AI that they allow their employees to use. Instead of token maxing, you now have to token min. Is there a word for that? You, you're on a token diet, I guess. I don't know. Hi, Peter. Um. Oh, yeah. Also about Twitter. Yeah, it will always be full of NSFW shit. Even if you ignore it, even if you tell it you're not interested in that, even if you don't verify your ID, mind you, because the funny thing is it will show me explicit shit with absolutely no regard for whether I want to see it or not. But when someone's talking about a TV show and posts a picture, the only way to mark it as a spoiler is to mark it as sensitive content, which means um, I don't get to see spoilers for TV shows, but I do see NSFW content. The reason being that I haven't verified that I'm an adult, so they're trying to make sure that I don't see NSFW content. Yeah, Elon got some great engineers going. It's fucking amazing. My Twitter was full of NSFW. After fighting it a lot, it got better, but it can still happen. Yeah, honestly, it's not even NSFW images. It's more so people sharing too much and me not being in the slightest interested in what you have to say. Genuinely, shut the fuck up. Why is this being shown to me? And that's the worst part, because if it was an image, it's like, okay, you clicked on it, so it makes sense that it would show you more of that. But literally, no. I'm not looking at that. It's just a tweet that is put onto my timeline that I have no control over. How do I tell you that I'm not interested in that? I'm not liking it, I'm not opening it, I'm not responding to it. What are you going on about? There's an Among Us show. It's about 7 years too late. And yes, I know Among Us was popular in 2020. Oh, 2025. Okay, so it's 6 years too late. A crew discovers that an alien shapeshifter has infiltrated their ranks, aiming to sow chaos. You know what? Do it in the style of Alien, and I'm watching that. But I think they're afraid to take risks, unfortunately, so that probably isn't gonna happen. Oh, I would get NSFW images, but those were pretty easy to ignore. It's the tweets that's difficult to ignore, the actual like text. Where I'm like, genuinely, who the fuck wanted to know this information about you, man? Please. I didn't ask.
Epsilon.
I think we're making up new letters now. I'm not that familiar with the Greek alphabet, but Jesus. Alright. Alright, so I'm seeing here, in the first 2 years of the history of Unix, no documentation existed. So I'm actually a year ahead of the curve on this one. So be proud of me for that one. The fourth edition of the man pages were formatted using the trough typeset. It's sake. Honestly, it's just my throat is dry, but I don't know, I can't do anything. Why am I seeing ABBA? There was an hidden Easter egg in the man-db version of the man command, which would cause the command to return gimme 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 when run at 0030, a reference to the ABBA song Gimme 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 a Man After Midnight. It was introduced in 2011, but first restricted and then removed in 2017 after finally being found. It's a little bit concerning when it comes to backdoors. How it took them... how many years? We don't really know when it was introduced. But it took them 6 years to remove it.
Wallaber reddit your channel with 79 viewers.
Well, Loki dying. Walla Bear, thank you for the raid. I'll try not to die in the process.
Soltou-te o Alaber.
I think some guy had man failing in Midnight CI. Wait, I actually need to know the story of what was going on here. Alright. Well, welcome, Wallabear. I'm making an operating system and I'm kind of researching how I can do documentation. I kind of want to do... I'm looking into how man pages work. And I just found out apparently there was a ABBA Easter egg in the man pages for Linux. So I kind of want to find out more about that. But yeah, I kind of want to figure out how to do these manual pages for my system. And anyway, what were you up to? Don't think I've seen your channel before. Also, I have allergies, so I'm coughing a lot. Well, I'm recovering from... I don't even know what the hell to call it, but yeah, I'm coughing a lot. So sorry about that. Game dev, nice. Coding puzzle game thing. Nice. I used to not mainly do game dev. On my free time, mainly do game dev. Now I mostly do OS dev, but yeah, I also do some game dev. But I kind of decided to do everything from scratch because I like to make things difficult. Actually, because I like to control the code that I write. And I wasn't very happy with game engines, so... It's taking my time, but I'm doing stuff. 4 games on Steam, nice. One of them is a coding game called Replicube. I was gonna read Republic Cube, okay. Replicube. I was actually, I'm working on a hacking game. So, definitely interested in seeing programming games to take a little bit of inspiration from them. Oh, I like this. I like the interface. It's very, like, retro. Chill beats to relax and make cubes too. Nice. Alright, released a year ago. Nice. Ooh. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. But I'm not logged in, so I'm not going to wishlist it. But I'm gonna do that later. It actually looks really interesting. I don't know what's going on here exactly, but I like it. I want to find out more. Alright, so I want to read about this. The year was 2011. Linux's man command. I don't think I can read this entire thing, so I'm just gonna give you the Um, we're just gonna get the highlights of this one. One day a Twitter user suggested an idea to the maintainer of ManDB. I think that if you type man at 0001 hours, it should print give me, give me, give me. I was the entire time wondering why. Bye, Wallabear. Thanks for the raid. And have a great rest of your day. I was wondering why this random ass Easter egg when the lyrics of the song are give me, give me, give me, a man after midnight. Not only the lyrics, the title of the song is a man after midnight. So of course, if you run it, I'm being so stupid right now. A man after midnight. I'm being slow as hell today, okay? Give me a man after midnight. So if you run man after midnight, it gives you give me, give me, give me. Well, give me, not give me. It's so obvious, and the entire time my head's just been circling around it without ever actually understanding the damn thing. Alright. Because of the maintainer's excellent work, ABBA's legacy was extended yet further into the 2010s, as if they needed any help, thus fulfilling an ancient pop culture prophecy that ABBA will never die. Yeah, exactly. The maintainer was extra careful to make sure that the message was only printed if no man page was requested, so only if you run man. Interesting. He didn't want to break anything or confuse anyone, he just wanted to add a fun feature. Very nice. But somebody's automated test failed. When they run at 12:30, but work fine the rest of the day, they fail with the message give me, give me, give me in the STD error, which wasn't expected. Why are we getting this out? I can just imagine the time it took them between contacting the maintainers and finding the bug. You know they were like figuring out this thing for so long. They were like, what does give me, give me, give me even mean? What the hell is going on? They were probably going line by line into their own code base trying to figure out where exactly this print was coming from. There's no way this is coming from Linux, right? It's so ridiculous. They probably tried to isolate this bug so much until eventually they gave up and they were just like, let's ask the maintainers. I just know that it was a very stressful time between when they figured it out and when they handed it off to the maintainers. That was my fault. Pretty much the whole story is in the commit. The maintainer of man is a good friend of mine. One day, 6 years ago, I jokingly said to him that if you invoke man after midnight, it should print gimme, gimme, gimme because of the ABBA song called Gimme, 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 a Man After Midnight. Well, he actually did put it. A few people were amused to discover it, and we mostly forgot about it until today. I didn't expect this to cause any problems. What sort of test break on parsing the output of man with no page specified? That is the question I was asking myself. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that one turned up eventually, but it did take 6 years. So what does this even do? It does nothing. First off, why are you testing man pages? I'm assuming because you're... can you extend them? Can you, as a third-party developer, add more man pages? I don't know. But I'm assuming that's what they're doing. And then they had some sort of fallback case. Like, what happens if... I genuinely don't understand why you would have an automated test that needs to run man. Was never meant to affect non-error cases. I didn't take this into account when I implemented it. Comments are not for extended discussion. This conversation has been moved to chat. Brother. After some reflection, I've removed this Easter egg. Aw, that sucks. Yeah, this is the thread that's linked. I'm just wondering, like, why did you do this? Why did you need this? Why does your test script call man when it should fail? Because we wanted the man path man W. Ah, okay, so it also happens when you call it with W. What does that do? Okay, that's reasonable. Why would you put it there? Yeah. Now I understand. You're trying to get all the paths that the man pages go through. Which, by the way, gotta be linked to path somehow, because I never explicitly added this one. This is in my home folder. But I did add this one folder in here to path. So I'm not sure how that happened. Alright, with the W, it kind of makes sense. It prints all the places where the man page is. Happening. Alright, here's the thing. As I said yesterday, I don't know what it is about airplanes that makes me want to write documentation. But I wrote this the other day, which is a 200-line overview of the system, which right now is only found on here. What the hell is that sound? Alright, there was like a little chittering sound happening. I think it's just because this was very low. Yeah. Alright. I was hearing this like, I don't know, like chittering sound. Like something was walking on my, I don't know. You never know with cockroaches. So, it scared the shit out of me. Alright, that makes sense. It was just this, it was very low, so I could only hear the percussion. Anyway. Yeah, this very quick overview about everything that has to do with my system. Including the fact that you are not supposed to use AI with it. Because no matter how many places I put this in, the AI is just like, well, I can't fucking read. So, yeah. Just putting this in as many places as possible. Except for the actual license. I should actually put it in the actual license. Can you just patch a license? Is that a thing? I don't know. But anyway. Also, is the wording here correct? Mainly geared for personal use? It should be towards personal use, maybe? But the point is, I'm making it for myself, not for personal use of other people necessarily, although it's also, you're allowed to use it for that. But, like, it's mostly a personal project. I'm just gonna type it as mostly, but mainly a personal project for my own use. Alright, so there. Let's get rid of that. Do I code with C# as well? Or just C with a little bit of C++? Well, nice to meet you too. I've done C# before. I've done Unity. And back in the dark ages when I only had a Windows computer, and I used to code in Unity, but occasionally did other projects, I also used C#. But yeah, not that much. Nowadays, I don't really do C# anymore. Although it's nicer than C++, so it's just not low level. And C is GOAT. C is the best. I just need nothing else but C. A, B, D, E, F. Don't need them. Just C. And cred, of course, because I have my own compiler, so I have to, yeah, remember that. Anyway, yeah, we have a little overview of the system. We have a quick start on how to get started working with the system. Right, so commands for running it on both virtual machine and installing it onto an SD card, although that's not very... I've only tested it on my computer, so it might not work for anyone else's. Probably won't work for anything that isn't a Mac. Then how the project is structured, how the system is designed. Then we go into the various sections of the system itself, like its UI system and like the philosophy behind building the UI, the basic things like you can draw windows, windows don't overlap. And then also information for developers. Like, so if I want to do a graphical application for the system, this is what I need to know. And all of it is written in this kind of bullet point type of structure where it's a simple sentence that just tells you what you need to know at a glance about this thing. So what do you need to know about the UI? This is actually no longer accurate as of yesterday and the day before. That it's a window-based UI system. It no longer is necessarily window-based. There's a way to make it non-windowed, and there's a way to make it headless. But the UI system is well integrated into the kernel itself. The kernel knows what a window is. It has its own window manager inside of the kernel. I don't necessarily want to move it out of the kernel, even though it's not an essential part of the kernel. Doesn't really matter. But you know, it's different from how Linux works, so I'm putting it there as a little information that you might find useful. It tells you that windows are drawable. You drag and drop on the desktop, which creates a new window. So just do this. Creates a new window. Windows don't... Why am I not running the system right now? To go along with what I'm saying. Oh, because I'm in headless mode. Yeah, that's... Back to this. Anyway, as it says, windows are draggable. I forgot to mention, actually, for example, that the yeah, you can draw a window like that. If you draw a window onto another window, it will no longer work, actually. But it definitely tries to make sure that they don't overlap, so it will always put it like that. I kind of had an issue with a click happening inside of a window. Oh, there it is. Okay, it does work. Alright, so there. I drew a window that overlaps with this one, so it automatically moved it out of the way. And it can be pretty smart about this. So yeah, it does that. Yeah, there's gonna be a few things that I have to update, especially now that I have headless mode and all that. But for example, the desktop is infinite. Drag with middle mouse to move around it. It also has an optional zooming feature, which I have disabled, but I'm gonna make it a thing that you can enable through preferences. Right, so the point is we have all of these bullet points about the different aspects of the system, and I kind of want to use this as a starting point to build a proper manual for the system. So okay, this is 200 pages on the very, very basics overview of the system. But for example, this thing here about the terminal, right? Terminal for developers. Here it tells you a little bit about my ANSI escape sequence replacement, which I use this format to make this red. This will not be red. To wipe the screen with this, to move the cursor with this. There's a few more options that I'm not adding here because this is just a brief overview of how this thing works, right? So I'm probably going to want to have a more detailed manual that has more information on what you need. And the way that I want to structure it is not with a document like this that just has to be constantly updated, and then a separate document that this is the overview, right? and then a separate document that has detailed information on all of these elements. But rather, I would kind of want it to work like this, where we have, this is from my Git rant at the beginning of the stream. Let's get rid of that. Any limit for overlapping? There's a, it's kind of limited to memory. It only uses like 512 megabytes by default, but that's defined by this script, so you can change it. And on Raspberry Pi, it should be able to use as much as you want, but Raspberry Pi support on real hardware is kind of very limited. Although on Raspberry Pi, I'm not allowed to specify how much memory I want. I'm just allowed to use the actual values that Raspberry Pi uses on QEMU, so technically no limitation besides memory. There's no swap or anything like that, so yeah. The way that I would want it to work is that, for example, we have a man page for the terminal. And the man page for the terminal is everything to do with the terminal, right? So the terminal is ... Then we can have, for example, a section about, let's make this a little bit bigger. A section on cursor control, which has its own little ... section here, as well as a for developers, which, to be fair, the for developers thing would probably contain this one inside of it. Okay, so make this L. And this would be like an overview. Right, so it's kind of structured like this. We have the main thing that this is about, the terminal in this case. We have an overview about it with some bullet points. And then we have more detailed sections below, which can go into about as much detail as I want. I would want to be able to build things like the overview in a somewhat dynamic way. Right, so the way that I would do this, not sure why I was drawing that when I can literally just do this, right? Hi, Lavender Dev. This is kind of not the format I want to use, but this kind of works. All right, let me see what I wrote about the terminal, so I can write a proper explanation. There's not a whole lot. Okay, so the shell, for example. So we're gonna have a section about shell, including something about the default shell that it includes. We can even go deeper. Can you go this deep in Markdown? I don't know, but we can here. All right, and all of these can talk about whatever. Whatever. Built-in functions, whatever. All right, so if I can mark certain sections of this document, which, keep in mind, is supposed to be like quite a whole lot of yapping. But I say, okay, this section here, this segment here is supposed to be the overview. Right, so formatting like this. Kinda how, I already closed the man pages, but I have it here actually, so. Is this the English or the Ukrainian one? This is the English one, okay. So kind of similar to what man pages do here. They do use a little bit of like a formatting system, right? I wouldn't want to use something like this. I can afford to maybe use something like this. Or I can say that this is the overview for this section. This is the overview for this section. And then here I have this kind of maybe a command like insert overview, which essentially is going to parse the document, find all of these sections, and give us a little bullet point section like this one, just always up to date on what it wants to do, on what I want it to have inside of it, right? So the first sentence of this section here is going to say that the default shell is Sheldon. Then outside of that, it says it is located inside shared / shell / Sheldon. I can even mark this part as dev. So I can kind of dynamically, I mean, maybe not even do this, but essentially I can write something like man terminal overview right here. So man terminal overview. And this will go through the man page for the terminal, finding all of these and just giving me a very small summed up version of what the terminal is like. So that is kind of how I want to build it. And honestly, I like this format. First off, because I already have a parser for it. Because it's the same format that I'm using, as you can see in the overview. It's the same format that I use for the, god damn it, for the terminal. So it's very similar. It also maintains everything as pretty readable, which is why I wanted to use it in the terminal instead of ANSI escape sequences, because those are not readable at all. And it's very similar to like rich text formatting, which is what I was inspired by. I look like Kylo Ren. That's a new one, for sure. Alright, so that is kind of how I would want to build it. But really the part that I care about is that I can yap as much as I want inside of the manual page and then tag certain sections as like, hey, this is part of the overview, this is for developers. And I can kind of generate more compact views for what you need. Again, by allowing you to do man terminal overview, or man terminal will give you this entire page. Man terminal shell can give you just this section. And if I do it right, for example, the way that this is built here, you could do like man for developers. That doesn't really make sense to type it like that, but yeah, the point is that the section is called for developers. So it could go through the man pages and find everything that is marked as for developers and just give us that information. Right, so where we have terminal, and then we have a section called for developers, and then we have UI, and we have a section called for developers. Then if you do man developers, let's say, then it will just give you these sections for each of these pages. So it will tell you terminal. Here's the YAP session about the terminal. UI. Here's the YAP session about UI. So yeah, as always, I like to structure data like that. Hi Lolly, a project is here, I just closed it. This is my documents folder actually. So that's kind of how I would want to build it. And again, it's a little bit of everything. It's system manual. It's gonna be like the manual for the library, like reference for the library. A little bit like how man works, which if you do the man. Um, 1 is for programs and shell commands. 2 is for system calls. 3 is for library calls. 4 is for special 4 is for special files. 5 is for file formats, which I did not know you had, actually, Linux. So that is another thing that I want, because I do have like data signatures, which is supposed to indicate what type of data something is. And of course, I would need to document some of these. So man 5, can I do just pass? Yep. Description. etc password contains one line for each user account with 7 fields delimited by colons, and these fields are the login name, the optional encrypted password, the numerical user ID, the numerical group ID, the username comment field, the user home directory, and the optional user command interpreter. If the password field is a lowercase x, then the encrypted password is actually stored in the shadow file instead. There must be a corresponding line in the etc shadow file, or the user account is invalid. Alright, so actually, that's kind of exactly what I want, because I do have data signatures, and it is kind of voluntary. You can tag any kind of data as being any format, and it really isn't supposed to be taken at face value. It's supposed to be just kind of indicative. But it is helpful. So data signatures. I have some common ones. Should be in files. Data signatures. Yeah. So I have a data signature for commands, a data signature for text files. Don't think you need to explain how a text file works, but yeah. For application packages, for raw data. For data structures, for the system's theme, and for the process state. So these are some of the default ones that the system has. It would be nice to have them it would be nice to have them documented somewhere as well. Nice to see that Linux also has that. Alright. Is that a terminal command you made? Man, for developer, you get that output. Is a terminal command that I'm thinking of how to make. I'm not making it yet. But yeah, I was looking into how man works and whatnot. Do you plan to build some system as complex as Linux or Windows in the future? Yes and no. In the sense that Linux started out as a kind of, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, similar goals. No, actually, it started out more as a community project. So actually, that's kind of what I meant here by, it is an open source project, but mainly a personal project for my own use. So essentially, my plan is to develop it to do whatever I needed to do. Right, and for example, the reason that I wrote this overview is that a contributor, I kind of realized that contributors don't really know what the hell is going on in this system. It's not Unix-like, so you can't transfer your knowledge from Unix to here. But also, it Where was I going with that? It has some stuff that is maybe not super intuitive. Or some stuff that maybe you forget the exact like details of how it works. So it does need a little bit of documentation. And that's the reason that I wrote that. I wouldn't have needed documentation if this was a purely personal project that I work on myself and nobody contributes to. Although it would have been nice to have when I come back to a feature that I haven't worked on in 2 years. Yeah, probably. But essentially everything that I'm doing is mostly for my own use. And even in contributions, I'm not going to accept a contribution that adds something that isn't immediately necessary. So I would love to be able to rely mostly on this system in the future, and that will require me to build a lot of things to make it pretty usable in and of itself without relying on another system, while also making it distributed so it can still rely on another system. So there's that. But I don't necessarily have the goal that Windows Windows and Linux kind of have the same goal of, they need to run on a certain amount of machines, they need to support a certain amount of use cases. Though Windows is a little less geared towards servers, but still can run on servers. There's Windows Server, I think, Azure, whatever that's called. 3 people are using it, so yeah. Linux is more geared towards servers, but also towards end users. Kinda needs to support millions and millions of people, whereas in reality the system mostly needs to support me, but I do use it a lot. So in that sense, I do expect it to get pretty complex, but at the same time I don't expect it to... I'm not aiming to have the same wide availability and support that Windows and Linux have. Or even Mac. Mac only runs on one type of hardware, officially. They have very strict control over which hardware this version is supposed to run, each version is supposed to run on. Even then, it's supposed to support a lot of use cases for the millions and millions of people that use Mac, iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, watchOS, Vision OS, whatever else they got going on. Because they're commercial products, even though they're limited, they still have to support so many more things that I don't want to do that. So yeah, stays first and foremost a personal project. Still dead. All right. So for this documentation, do I want to make it inside of the OS project or do I want to make it outside of it? I'm gonna go with inside. Yeah, what the hell. Alright. So officially this overview is going to become available when I do my next commit for the system. But the truth is, I may want to auto-generate this file actually. Because that way I can still show it on Git. Right, you don't need a custom command to run it, because this entire thing is going to rely on a custom command. Alright. So the doc viewer. What's up, not app. Because what's up doc, obviously. I give a lot of thoughts to these names. Obviously, I'm very thorough when it comes to giving them insightful and understandable names, and I'm definitely not going to call it this. This is such a ridiculous name. Doc view. Or even manual. Yeah, manual's fine. Okay, I will need to parse... no, not literal, it's a string array. argv. It's going to return a 0. And should we do the man after midnight? Not really, because the name of it is manual. So that won't work. But anyway, I would like it to work cross-platform as well, because I do have some libraries that I use for cross-platform development. They're going to have documentation as well, so I want that documentation to be available as well. But luckily, my library is cross-platform, so as long as I target that, I should be fine. Anyway, how do we structure this? I'm really struggling with the names today. I'm just gonna call it document. Pages. Right. And for example, it's not really gonna use Markdown. I'm not really planning on using Markdown, and in fact, this is a Markdown file, to be fair. So how do I view Markdown? Can I just open it in a browser? Can I just open it in... Is there a Markdown viewer that shows me the actual formatting? Because I want to see if I did it right. I'm not sure about these bullet points that I have in a few places. I also don't remember where this is anymore. It's in OS docs overview.md. It just opens in Z. Alright, can I open with... Related apps are text editor and vibecoders. Alright, there is no built-in, but it can be compiled to HTML. Does Mac have a built-in Markdown viewer? Because this is ridiculous. Come on, man. No. Well, it can open with Chromium. That just opens it as a text file. It can open with Pages. Also just opens it as a raw file. I want to see the actual formatting. Bing cat. Will cat actually read it? It's here, right? Yeah. No. I am flabbergasted. Wait, Kate. Do I still have Kate installed? I do not have Kate installed. Although, what was that? Yekaterinburg, Russia. It's 1:13 a.m. right now. I'm actually surprised there's no way to see a markdown file with formatting by default on Linux. I know I'm planning on making one technically, because um, that's weird as hell. Anyway, yeah. Whatever. Well, I hope this is a well formatted Markdown file. To be honest, does it really matter when we don't have any way of viewing Markdown without needing to install a third-party app? No, doesn't matter. So I can just do whatever I want with this. But anyway, we have a there is a way, actually. Can you... luckily, this website is super, super slow. That's the easiest way that I can think of. But yes, it actually formatted my file exactly as I wanted it to. And the bullet points are actual bullet points. Okay, cool. That is very helpful. Yeah, so right now I'm working on I was just trying to read a markdown file. It's surprisingly difficult. I did see bad in the suggestions, but what is bad? My god. Yeah, whatever it is, I need to install it, so I just needed a built-in for it. Genuinely this works. Who cares? Anyway, one more thing I need to know about Markdown is there any way for me to like do what I wanted to do here? Something like, whoops, that didn't do what I expected it to do. Tagging something like this. Because I kind of want it to be compatible with Markdown viewers, such as GitHub and also, but oh, never mind. Yeah, I need to add some extra information that isn't gonna be visible necessarily in the Markdown. But I'm not sure. Okay, I'm just gonna use Markdown for the time being. Alright, so I'm going to write a UI and here I'm going to have this overview for it. And then there is also a section for developers, just this one right here. And everything kind of reduces by one of these out, because, yeah. Alright, so that one's going to be for the UI. Now I want to do the same thing for the terminal. Alright, so I'm just going to try to stick to vanilla Markdown as much as possible. So for the terminal, I kind of just want to copy this whole thing. It can be configured to some special files to right, so I add that extra, just one of these, and then this is actually a section inside of this one. All right. So, all right, now I have two pages with very basic information. I can definitely, next time I catch a flight apparently, just get started on writing a whole lot of stuff for it. But here's how this markdown viewer is going to work. Okay, so right now I'm not gonna bother with like arguments and stuff. Ideally, you're gonna call this as manual you could type something like manual terminal dev, and this could give you developer information for the terminal. But right now I'm just gonna make it kind of hard-coded to just give me the overview of both the terminal and the terminal and UI. Okay, so I wanted to give me the overview for those. So I'm actually going to use a files helpers traverse directory. So the directory is going to be /resources/pages. No, that doesn't make any sense. /docs/pages. Recursive should be yes, but right now doesn't do anything. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I pass this function pointer so that we are going to traverse the docs folder to find these two files, and then we are going to create a string from joining the directory and file. We're then going to free that string. We're going to use that to read the full file, probably. I'll probably want to have an actual like parser that is capable of reading this. But for the time being, we should be okay with just file content, read full file at string data, and I don't care about the size of the file for now. I will eventually, and just print the contents of the file. All right. So this manual command is actually a command, so it goes into tools. That way it gets auto-compiled, moved into the system automatically. But how do I make this available inside of the system? I can have a solution, but it's not a universal solution that will work in all the cases. Alright, for the time being, I think it's gonna be fine. If I just create a make file here, which is going to... Oh, I haven't written a make file in forever. Alright, let me see how these things work again. Include common. We're gonna need that. You're not gonna need to clean. Pretty sure. Alright, so you're gonna include common. And then for all, what you're gonna do is you're gonna copy the pages folder. Something like this, if I'm not mistaken, to also to create all intermediate directories, if I'm not mistaken, into fs redOS docs. All right, so I'm going to try cd into docs, make rp. All right, and that gets put in here. Okay, that's perfect. Then the last thing I need to do is to create an actual module for this thing. Which I'm just gonna need this actually, this exact thing. And then this exact, no, wait. Yes, this exact thing. Docs.c. We're going to include docs.h on it. We're going to copy this. We're going to call it docsmod. Documentation. Mount it to /docs. And then you don't really need to do any of this. You just do alias info. And alias path being Can you give me any information whatsoever? It's a string. Okay. So I need to create a string for it. Alright, hold on. In that case, I'm going to give it an init function, which is going to be docs_init. I'm going to create this function. Going to be a boolean with this, and I think it takes a system module argument. Yep. Return true, and the module's alias path is going to be /boot/redOS/docs. Which is essentially going to create /docs on the root directory, which is going to point us to this place. Alright, which means now if I make all of this, I go to the file browser, I'm not mounting it. I'm not mounting this. So, kinda, whoops, forgot that one. Undefined reference to doc module. Because I called it docsmod instead of doc module. Alright, let's try that again. I need to remove the login. File browser and docs. There it is. But it kind of needs more information. I'm pretty sure I've done this before, but... it's somehow not working. Anyway, before I continue with anything else, Going to add this docs to the make file, to the root make file, and make mode all. Not sure mode is needed for anything, but whatever. That's it. That's all you really need. You don't even need a mode, to be honest. But this goes in C and then docs. Alright, so that's going to become a automatic step in the build process to move the docs into the FS folder, which will not be automatically installed, I think. Yeah, it will not be automatically installed onto... Alright. Still, failed to get info for /docs, and I'm not entirely sure why. Because, like, you can get info for /shared, so why can't you get info for /docs? Not sure why that doesn't work. Probably because I'm not resolving it correctly. Let me try doing that. Adding a stat function. Should fix it. Maybe. Yep. But it's empty. So that's not good. Alright, there is another thing I need to do. Get rid of the login. Absolutely do not need that. Yeah, it's empty in here. That's not okay. Is it maybe just because the module doesn't actually do anything? And I should probably make it a little bit smarter than I did. That is most likely the reason. If I'm not mistaken, I will need to include files VFS and then tell you how to open a file, which is VFS open, how to read a file, which is VFS read, how to write a file, which is read only, so not that one. How to truncate? No. How to read a directory, which is VFS read dir. Alright, open a file, read a directory, and stat. Hopefully that gives me enough functions to be able to list out the contents of the directory, work with it. Nope. Isn't that amazing? Right, I know why. Okay. Whew. Essentially, the system is just not prepared to handle this kind of alias at this level for anything other than userland. Anything other than userland, really. So that kind of means I can do all this, but in userland. And honestly, because I don't want to waste too much time on this, that's fine by me. Essentially, I don't need you. I just need you two. And I will move you to process isolated fs. Put you here. And load you here with the docs module. And just undo the change that I did in here. And remove you two. Alright, hopefully that will work. For fuck's sake! Come on, man. What am I doing wrong? Boot RedOS docs. That should be a valid path, yeah. Except I can't even see. Okay. I think the real issue here is that there's probably an issue with my FAT32 driver that's causing this. So long story short, we're gonna take you, I'm gonna put you in here, I'm gonna move you here, and I am such an idiot. The folder is called Pages. It still doesn't load. But it doesn't change the fact that the folder was called... No, it was called Docs. Okay, so never mind. Anyway, yeah. I'm now going to move it to home docs. Hopefully that works, because I'm tired of working with aliases. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that works. It won't actually work once I push it to GitHub. Like, you'll need to do some extra setup, but it works for what I want it to do, so that's good. Alright. The next thing, of course, is I want to test. If I run manual, it did nothing. Failed to navigate to directory. That's not a good sign. Just docs. Just docs. Alright, and there we have it. It isn't scrolling, though. I was expecting it to scroll, but it didn't. Yeah, so that's just a bug in the terminal, which... Let me be clear. The terminal is very buggy. It's very annoying. I really hate it. It's C++. That's the main reason I hate it. And it sucks. So anyway, it does what I want it to do, which is it displays the contents of both files. After a lot of work. And just the fact that I had to move it from one... has the dog even moved an inch since I started the stream? Chester? Alright, his chest is moving, so I know he's alive. That's pretty much the only way that I know he's alive. Yeah, there's probably an issue with the FAT32 driver that is causing the folder to not be recognized properly. So I kind of had to hack it together a little bit, but it does what I want it to do. Now, I would need this thing to do a little bit of markdown parsing in order to be able to read only the section that I want to read. For example, YouTube added this really interesting feature to the chat, which auto-translates chat messages. That's great and all, but it's auto-translating chat messages that don't need translation. Like the word bat got translated to one. In what language is one bat? What language is that? Same translator, by the way. I don't know what language that is, but yeah, anyway, great job, YouTube. As always, you know best when it comes to language. If you speak more than one language, you know how shit all of technology is at working with that. You can tell it was written by Americans, essentially. It's just incapable of comprehending the fact that somebody might speak multiple languages. And now with AI, it's actually incapable of comprehending that anyone can speak a single language. So, great job. Also, auto-moderation, such as the word for black in Spanish, not being allowed in chat on Twitch. Very American design. That's all I have to say about that. Very American design. Anyway, let's see if we can then what's the simplest way that I can do a little bit of parsing? In Markdown, because what I want to do is I want to get only the overview for every one of these pages. So first off, I need to get this, because that's the title. By the way, I kind of made it a little bit too verbose there with the title. It's a little ridiculous. Although, maybe I can keep it and even get rid of it. Nah, we're good. Okay, just terminal, just UI. Okay. So if I want to parse the overview, right, I want to get the title of the thing, because this text is going to be taken and this text is going to be taken. To separate the two of them, I need to have the title of the thing, and then I need to have the overview. I need to find the overview. All right. So how about I write a very simple markdown titles let's make this a string slice. That's the entire point of string slices. Alright, so this is going to be a function that just extracts all the titles from a from a document. So we're going to want that, and we are going to want to not die. Would love that. And to transform this into a string slice with a file content and the length. All right. Language recommendations. C. Honestly, it's low level. can be a little bit difficult, but it's worth learning. Really teaches you a lot about computing, so very useful. All right. Do I use a parser for this? A proper parser, a proper scanner even. I want to use a scanner, okay. I have a scanner, I might as well use a scanner. So I include data slash for. What happened to my autocomplete? For the love of God. I don't remember the name of the file, so I really need you to help me with this one. I hope that's right. It might not be. C is great and small. It's pretty easy to find stuff. Yeah. See, C is very low level. But the good thing about it is it forces you to figure out what's going on. And it teaches you programming faster, I feel like, than another language that abstracts a lot of stuff away. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. I started with C++ technically, but I learned C from that. Boy, was I glad to not have this shit. Hello, Max. Alright, I hope this is the... What happened to my goddamn Clang? You clanger. You useless piece of software. I wasn't gonna call it a piece of software initially. See, I was missing a folder. It was scanner.h. C++ went to Java, C#, and now I'm just enjoying C. Yeah, exactly. I went C++, C, Objective-C, Swift, Java, C#, a lot of languages. C is the best. C is the best. You cannot go wrong with C. Can't even mash buttons on the keyboard in frustration because Zed just loses it. I don't deal with clankers, but I deal with clangers. This damn fucking language server keeps breaking. Lord in heaven. You know, I would have already written all the boilerplate I need if I had autocomplete. But Clang is just that fucking useless. It just breaks whenever you need it most. Because I haven't used a scanner in a really long time, so I didn't remember the name of the function. I didn't remember the format of the function. And it's not really being very helpful. How hard is math in computer science? I have to say, I didn't particularly enjoy it because it's not very useful, the math that you do in computer science, but oh well. There's like derivatives, integrals, limits. Those can be kind of useful, but like you don't tend to think in that term when you're working with computer science. Anyway, most of it just felt useless, to be completely honest. Alright, so I want to use this thing, which is a string slice garbage. Scan to. Thank you for not auto-completing yet again. So I want to scan up to this character. And I'm probably going to have to put this whole thing in a do while. Though I'm going to make it false for the time being. I'm not sure what the condition is going to be here. Anyway. If no GBG length, then break out of the loop. Because we failed at getting the next title. Or, yeah, the next... Yeah, title. I call them titles. Alright. So... Wait, what does this function do? I see. Okay, so yeah, once we get to this point, we've scanned up to the first one of these characters. And we're going to want to count how many there are, essentially by just doing a scan next. This will only run once, to be fair, but it's gonna help me see if it does what I expect it to do. Which is actually to tell me that there's one hash in the title, because it's only gonna run once. It's going to read this one and this one. But it's gonna run for 2 files, so it's technically gonna run twice. What now? While before void. Oh. Oh, I was missing a bracket there. Okay. That was weird. Yep, that's one. I just want to point out, you cannot possibly... How did this happen exactly? Count starts at 0. Oh, I'm never printing it. Okay, that's how it happened. I was like, how did this number become negative when it's only increasing from 0? The reason is I was never printing it. There are 0 hashes in this title. Well... Also, this isn't even correct. I literally called it garbage, and then I check if garbage is empty. Favorite operating system is 100% going to be Mac. It's just better in every significant way. I said it was going to run twice. That's 4 times. Okay. How is that happening? How are you doing that? How are you doing that? How many times does this run? Oh. Okay, I forgot to ignore these two files. So yeah, yeah, we don't want those two. Essentially, let's ignore those two files. That makes more sense. Oh, it starts at 1, so that's kind of not right. Um, Alright, that's better. I'm just gonna redo this logic though. Alright, so. So while scan next is not equal to this, you just continue doing nothing. That's the logic. We just want to ignore any characters. That's just not correct. It was better before. Alright, let's just bring it back to this. That should be able to count them accurately, I believe. Yeah, okay. Essentially, it just scans until it finds the first hash. But that also gets scanned. So we just check. This garbage string, alleged garbage string, does it contain this thing in its last character? If so, we already have one that we've scanned. Otherwise, well, we probably got to the end of the file, but yeah, just in case. Alright, so there are this many in the title. While scan next. No. I believe there's actually a function for this. While no scan end of file. So that should check them all. But that actually printed correctly now. Alright, let me see. There's one in the title. That is the redacted OS UI. Then there are two in the next one, which is overview. Then there are two in the next one, which is for developers. Alright, so I'm counting them correctly. Mac felt a bit restricted with customization. Yeah, I don't care much for customization. So, I just want to use the damn thing. Linux doesn't let you use the damn thing all that well. Just use the damn thing all that well. You need to kind of configure it a whole bunch, even the more user-friendly distros. But Mac is a little bit too overbearing when it comes to security. That is an issue that I have, but not enough to move away from it. Yeah. Also, it's just lovely to work with. How can I say? Alright, so then, if I'm not mistaken, the title is going to be found by scanning up to scan R, or even, there it goes again, breaking. I can do N. R may be there, but N is always going to be there, so I'm just going to do N. That should be fine. Alright. This should give me the title of the section that I'm looking at. So I want you to print that and not print the garbage value. That way we'll only print the titles. Jumped headfirst into hyperlink down. Alright, 1 hash in this title, 2 in overview, 2 in for developers, 0 in this title, which is empty, so kind of found an empty string there a little bit, which is how you know you got to the end. It's fine. 1 in redacted OS built-in terminal, 1 in overview, 2 in overview, 2 in for developers, 3 in structured data. That is very good. The only thing is it gets to the end, so if no count, then we got to the end of our file. So I should no longer show that. Okay. All right. Okay, I've decided how I want to structure this. So I'm going to call this function actually not markdown titles. How did I do that? Did I put a double cursor on both places where this function appears? Seems like I did. Markdown. Yep, I did. Interesting. Find section. Or even iterate. No, I had a perfect name for it. It slipped out of my mind. Damn it. I'm just gonna call it markdown sections. I had a perfect name for it. I just don't remember what it was. Anyway, this is gonna go through all the sections, and we're gonna put this string slice out here. And we are going to create a void function pointer called onSection, which is going to have a size, is going to have a string slice for its title and a string slice for its content. Usually, okay, so this week and next week I'm streaming Fridays through Monday, 8:30 p.m. Central European time, 7:30 UK time. Normally I stream in the afternoon on Saturdays and Sundays, but I had to change my schedule temporarily, so that's the time that I stream right now. On both my Discord and my Twitch you can find the streaming times, but they're not updated for the weekend. Just the weekend now has the same streaming times as Fridays and Mondays, I believe. No, I know that it does. All right, so this is the markdown section, markdown sections area, and we're going to want to print overview, so this should be a little bit more. Print. Yeah, print overview is fine. Which is going to take these arguments. And if slice lit, where is clang? It's so useless. It breaks all the time. My god. Every time you do something slightly different, it just loses its fucking mind. Although I do wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that maybe I need to run bear on this project. Maybe that's it. Alright, this is the function pointer that you need. Just making sure that everything compiles. It does. Bear dash dash make dash b. Okay, so this is gonna take a bit, but hopefully, Clang is gonna go back to working now. Because it's really annoying to want to use a bunch of functions whose names you don't fully remember, and it does not autocomplete. That's really useless. Really annoying. Also, why do I have you? Can't do the most basic thing. Launch the project? I don't know. I kind of have a timeline for one, not a timeline, but like a roadmap for 1.0 version. But yeah, it's not super strict. But it is on Git right now, so it is open source and you can use it. And I just published an overview of how it works inside of the /docs folder. So that's very useful. Anyway, will it work now? You clanger. Let me restart it. Maybe it needs to be restarted. Fucking useless. Fucking useless. Oh my god, why do I have you? Why do I pay you, Clang? Why do I pay you if you are unable to... how do I make this normal, by the way? Because that's actually a really annoying thing. Not sure if that's gonna work. Seems fine. Works about as well as it did before, which is doesn't. By TikTok. I have to do this manually. For the love of God. Slice literal match. This is the function that I need. If the title matches overview, probably with a space at the beginning because we're kind of not trimming that, true, then we want to print the contents just as a string slice. Alright, will that work? No. Will that work? Nope. I just deleted that make file that I was actually using, and I thought I wasn't, so I deleted it. And the worst part is I didn't put it in the trash, I just deleted it. So now I need to recreate it. Hey, I'm not using it anyway. Was it pages or was it docs? It was docs. Not that it does anything, but it doesn't matter. Okay. And I forgot a parenthesis here. Which Clank didn't realize. And that's so cool. Okay, so it doesn't seem like anything matched the overview here. Most likely because of some white space. Oh, or maybe because I'm not calling this function at all? Yeah, that's probably about right. All right. If I'm not mistaken, that should print it correctly. Because we're kind of doing a weird... We're first parsing the title. No, we're first parsing the content, then the title of the next one. So that's when we need to emit. It's a little weird, but... Wrong title, overview. Yeah, I knew it. There is still a new line at the end of that, which prevents it from printing. But luckily I have a solution for that. I'm going to make a trim whitespace function for string slices, which the scanner actually kind of has one. So I'm going to copy it. Mostly this thing, essentially. For int I equals 0, I equals 0, I is smaller than the slice length, I plus plus. We're going to take a character C, and that's going to be the slice data object at index I, and of course you're going to complain about that. If you include new line, okay, so if there's a space or a new line and we expect to include new lines in this thing, or a tab or an R, then we just actually the logic is a little bit more complex than this. It is kind of like that, okay. Then we're going to create a new slice because we're manipulating the current slice, and we're just going to copy it over into new slice. So what we're going to do is new slice.data is going to be increased by 1, and new slice.length is going to be decreased by 1. If we find any other character, we break out of this loop. Then we're going to have another loop starting where we were, trying to find any non-new line character, which if is nl c include new line, Oh, I put the C in here as well, the if in here as well. So that's kind of a... All right. No, wait, that's not correct. Okay, this is how I'm gonna do it. Alright, so yeah, we go through the beginning of the string. And we check for new lines. And then we do the same thing on the inverse. And if the character is a new line, we simply reduce the length without increasing the data. Otherwise, we break out of the loop. And then we return the new slice. Maybe, though, I want to be a little bit clever about this. I still want to keep this out here. But put this here and name this one something else, like J. That way, I don't risk reading the whole string again. But yeah. Also, another thing is if no slice dot length or no slice dot data, we're just going to return the slice itself, which is an invalid string slice. So we get a invalid string slice as well. All right. Back to what I was writing. Then we're going to want we're going to want to match the title with the trimmed white space, also trimming new lines, because the new line is exactly the reason why this didn't match, right? Because it's the string was actually overview new line. And there we have it. This is the overview. The system has a window-based UI, so let me see if it is. Yep. By default, has 2 lines, that stuff. There we go. Then it also includes the first hash, which is not correct. I need to trim that as well. But the system's terminal has... There we go. We got the overview. Alright, so it worked, but still needs a little bit of refining. Font, I have no idea, but the entire theme is Synthwave 84, so whatever font that uses. See, I can move this here. And alright, that should give me the string without this last character, and as well trimming the spaces here and here, so it should be a little bit neater. Like that. Alright, I'm also gonna get rid of this print, so it will only give me the information that I want, and of course it fails. Why now? Oh. Oh, hold on. Let me structure this a little bit better. This one and there. Default Z font? I don't think it's the default Z font. I think it's part of the theme that I'm using, but I'm not sure. What is the problem exactly? Too few arguments. Oh, yeah, sorry. That is the problem, in fact, yes. Obviously. See, the good thing about not working with LLMs, when it tells you an error, it's real. All right. Yes, but of course, I also want to print the title. So if size equals to 1, then I'm also going to want to print the content. No, the title. The title of this section, as well as the content of the section, because if you don't have an overview, like if you don't mark it as overview, like if you skip this thing, it should still read you, like give you this back when you're getting the overview of the system. The thing is, right now the function is called print overview. I might want it to print something a little bit besides overview, so it kind of just depends on that. But I do want it to print the title of the string, and I do want it to put a new line, double new line here. That was a million new lines. But anyway, here's the overview. Yeah, this is not correct then. This content should probably not have printed then. Maybe let's forget about that part. Oh. Oh. Okay, I'm overriding the count before I use it. Whereas before here, this used to be the count of the previous section. Now it's the count of the next section. So that's kind of an issue. So the current count is this one. We're going to use that one here. And after we're done with that, the count gets updated to the current count. Otherwise, I'm counting wrong. Alright, redacted OS UI. Hold on, let me get the full thing going by just getting rid of this. Yes. Kind of. Mostly, yes. Alright, so we have UI. This is the overview for the UI. Then it has this thing that I need to get rid of. Terminal. This is the overview for the terminal. And then we're done. Okay. Cool. Now, can I make it a little bit like better formatted, say by adding this stuff instead of a new line? Not adding this. And then also getting rid of this log. That should format everything correctly. Ah, damn it. The title is not trimmed. Whoa. All right. Okay, there we have it. So the UI, this is the overview for the UI. For the terminal, this is the overview for the terminal. All right. As a final thing, instead of print overview, it's going to be print section. But we're going to have to specify what that section is by making a shitty closure here. By creating this variable that we're just going to tell it you're going to print the overview. And how do we know which part to print? Well, that's going to come from this. But of course, there's a space here. Just gonna make it developers. All right, so by default, it's going to get the overview of the files. Otherwise, it's going to take whatever section is specified here. It's going to go through the docs directory. It's going to find all of the MD files. Although, really, it's just skipping the dot and dot dot here. It's going to open the file, divide it into markdown sections, and print no longer overview but section, based on the value of seek section that was specified before. And then it is going to print it. So by default, it's going to print nothing because of reasons. That failed even worse. Okay, that's not good. First off, zero initialize this thing, otherwise it's gonna be a pain in the ass. Second, the first argument should be the section. Although it should be the second argument, but right now we only have one argument, so it's the first argument should be the section. Should seek my. Oh my god. Yeah. It's 1, not 0. Should seek null. Being a little dumb. Maybe it's time to finish the stream here. Alright, there we go. Should seek overview by default, and it will get us only the overview. Or I can do manual developers, and it did nothing. Although, the reason it did nothing is that these files are no longer the, they're not being updated because I had to hack things together a little bit. So take that, place that in, apply, replace, run it again, even though I'm pretty sure I didn't need to do that. Manual developers. Alright, so it prints a little bit too much information and the terminal freaks out on us. I really need to redo the terminal, man. That thing is painful to work with, honestly. But anyway, this is the developer information for the UI. This is the developer information for the terminal. Alright, so it does what I wanted to do. Works pretty well. Didn't have to make it as complex as I said I was going to make it. That's always pretty good. That's always pretty nice to have. So, good place to end it. The stream, that is. And continue more of this on Friday. Because tomorrow, like I said, I'm going to be checking out Lisp. I'm excited about that. I feel like Lisp is an interesting programming language that I've never tried. Even though I've done functional programming and Lisp can do functional programming, it isn't a purely functional programming language. But it is completely different from how C works. So that is pretty nice. And I do think that functional programming languages were inspired by Lisp, even though it can do, but isn't a functional programming language. So that's pretty interesting. Anyway, stream's gonna end here. All of this is technically up, but isn't gonna work amazing, isn't gonna be great, isn't gonna be beautiful, isn't gonna be perfect, because it is missing the fact that docs right now points to the wrong place. So, oh well. I'll see if I can fix that. There seems to be just a seek issue. No, not seek. What's the name of that? Stat issue with FAT32. Seems to fail sometimes. Okay, he just moved his mouth. He genuinely has not moved since the stream started. It is concerning, but guaranteed he is moving. I saw him breathing before, and I saw him moving his mouth just now, so he's alive and well. Despite appearances. Alright. Oh, he opened his eyes. He knows I'm talking about him. Alright, well, thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow with some Lisp.